2012 study where researchers took the photos of about 300 elderly people, and they gave them to another cohort of people to rate. They rated for the age.
Is that the Lothian birth cohort in Edinburgh?
Yeah.
Right. Well, so they looked at people from 1921 onwards, and it was fascinating. They rated them for a bunch of things: their age, their health, attractiveness, facial symmetry.
This is just based on the appearance on the photograph, by the way. Like, no, you're not meeting these people. We're not taking any tests. We're just looking at their photos and saying, are they healthy or not? Are they old or not?
So what did they find?
They found that if you follow those people out 7 years from the time that photo was taken, there was a really high degree of predictability that the people who were rated as older looking, whether or not they were actually older chronologically or not, if they were older looking, they were more likely to die.
Well, that totally fits with what I hear from my friend Nir Barzilai down in New York. He's at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and he studies centenarians. These are families, peoples that tend to live over 100, not to be confused with centurions, which are Roman soldiers. Sometimes that's mixed up. But what he sends me sometimes are photos of his centenarians, the father and the son, and both those guys that I'm now imagining in my head look really young. Not just the guy that's 100 who probably looks 70, but the 70-year-old son looks 40. And so this is fitting with the idea that you are really as old as you look.
When I read about the 2012 study, I immediately thought, what would be really interesting is if now we could take those photos and then test those people's biological ages with a DNA methylation clock.
The Horvath clock.
Horvath clock, which we talked about in prior episodes. And lo and behold, somebody had already thought of this. This often happens, by the way. You and I are talking about research and we're like, we should check this out. And then somebody else has done it. But another team of researchers did do it. And it turns out that it didn't correlate. There wasn't correlation between these people's appearances, even though that was predictive, and their biological clock. But there's a distinction that needs to be made.
Well, they were measuring the blood clock in that case. And so what we've learned since is that their various tissues have different clocks. And it helps to have a specific clock for that particular tissue, so that others have since gone on to make skin clocks. And they seem to work better for measuring the age of the skin.
And Mariana Baroni, who's a friend and colleague of yours from Brazil, she led a study that was published in 2020 showing that when you do this, when you build this epigenetic clock based on methylation of skin cells, it does predict biological age quite well.
It does. And there's a good reason why skin is going to age probably faster than the rest of the body, though it's still a good indicator, and that is that it's exposed to the elements. We know that if you grow up in Australia like I did, that the UV light is going to create DNA damage that accelerates the epigenetic changes that lead to aging. So someone like me is going to have probably older skin than my identical twin, if they had moved to Norway.
And like a third of Australians suffer from some sort of, is it skin cancer or skin?
It's skin cancer. It doesn't have to necessarily be lethal, but a third of Australians have something removed from their skin that could be a tumor. Now, what's been done since I was a kid is that all beaches have free sunscreen, which is great. Not in my day where
like when
we
you
would just
show up
someday.
to the beach, there's like a little...
Yeah, the press pack. Like instead of having ketchup in the US, they have sunscreen.
Well, now we have the hand sanitizer, but it's the same thing, right? It's
Don't use that.
So that's at the beaches?
You
don't have to bring your own sunscreen?
No.
That would save so much money.
Well,
because that stuff's expensive.
Billions of dollars in healthcare costs in the country for just a few dollars of sunscreen.
That's a really great investment, actually.
Yeah, sometimes Australia does things really well, but the problem, though, is that for those of us who grew up without the sunscreen, we have this damage that we're probably stuck with, though increasingly we're learning you might be able to reverse that damage as well.